How about a wireless lawn mowing robot that not only cuts the grass like any other mower, but also cleans the lawn, collects the clippings, gathers leaves, or even unloads the dishwasher? Okay, just kidding. It can't manage the household yet, but the brand new Yuka from Mammotion promises us the best possible care for our lawn and comes with several ingenious features. We'll take a detailed look at how this brand new lawnmower robot really performs in practice and what else this professional little helper has to offer in today's video. I hope you're just as excited as I am, so let's get started right after the intro. But if you haven't done so already, quickly subscribe to this channel now and activate the bell to make sure you don't miss any new videos. You can find the current prices of the device to support my channel in the video description below. Many thanks for your support, and now, let's get started. Almost anyone who has looked into lawn mowing robots will know this device, if not even own it themselves. The so-called Luba from Mammotion is undoubtedly a device of superlatives, and the immense attention it's received is well-deserved. In my previous test video, I thoroughly tested this device for you. If you haven't seen the video yet, make sure to check it out. You can find it now at the top right on the info card or on my channel. It'll be worth it. In today's video, we're taking it a step further and casting a critical eye on another very special model from Mammotion, namely the Yuka. Since there's a lot to show and I want to keep the video concise, I'll skip over the setup part of the device. For those of you who are still interested in the assembly, setup, and installation of the lawnmower robot, I'll record a separate step-by-step video if needed. Feel free to let me know in the comments below. You'll find that video later on in the info card at the top right or on my channel. And now it's time. The Yuka is fully ready for action. So let's take a detailed look at it in our test. Let's go! Starting with the external appearance, you'll quickly notice that the new Yuka doesn't follow in the footsteps of the well-known Luba, but instead goes its own way completely. Only the Mammotion branding on the side, the many blinking LEDs, which you can now thankfully disable via the app, and the logo on the front hint that the robot comes from a reputable manufacturer, so one can hopefully expect great things. In terms of craftsmanship, there's absolutely nothing to criticize. Just like the Luba, the device is made of a robust plastic housing and is precisely assembled, giving it a very high-quality feel. However, the housing, or rather the shape of the robot, has completely changed and is now much rounder, with fewer sharp edges. As for the dimensions, the difference is relatively minor, since the Yuka is, as shown by the displayed measurements, still quite large compared to lawn mowing robots from other brands. Weighing a solid 15.6 kilograms, it's still among the heaviest, as shown in the comparison graphic, but it is a full 3 kilograms lighter than its big brother, the Luba. The good news, on the back, there's a generously sized handle, making it easy to carry the robot over short distances, for instance, to move it to another zone or clean it. Speaking of which, the mower is still IPX6 certified, making it relatively well protected, as can be seen in the graphic. Carefully cleaning it with a garden hose is not a problem, saving a lot of time. The base station is IPX7 certified, so there's no need to worry about it being damaged by heavy rain. Both technically and aesthetically, I believe the mower is definitely impressive, although the aesthetic aspect is always a matter of personal taste. Speaking of the newly designed, attractive chassis of the Yuka, we should definitely take a critical look at its off-road capabilities. Particularly notable is the overall construction of the robot, which differs significantly from that of the Luba. The powerful four-wheel drive all-wheel drive is no longer present, as the Yuka now only has 3 points of contact with the ground, 2 drive wheels, and a steering roller. Mammotion decided to place the drive wheels at the rear, similar to the Ecovac's Goat. If you haven't seen the video for that device yet, you can find it now at the top right on the info card. The rear-wheel drive, combined with the steering roller, offers the advantage of great maneuverability. The Yuka can turn and maneuver with ease without putting too much strain on the ground or causing damage. As a result, it's very lawn-friendly. On the other hand, we do have to accept a slight limitation in terms of its climbing ability. Okay, to be honest, With a 45% incline that the Yuka can handle under ideal conditions with its rear-wheel drive, it's more than sufficient for most gardens without question. As you can see in the graphic, it still ranks in the upper mid-range compared to other devices. This means it can easily handle small to moderate inclines without the device getting stuck. This point is further reinforced by the two very large drive wheels. As you can see in the video and the comparison graphic, the Yuka features rather large drive wheels with a diameter of 235 millimeters. Equipped with a rugged tread, I experienced no issues during my test when dealing with small bumps or slightly muddy spots on the lawn. Finally, I also put the Yuka through a molehill test and noticed the following results. Due to the relatively low-hanging skirt of the robot, which is supported only by a steering roller, the device tends to bottom out more quickly when it sinks into the ground. I tested this with the channel approximately 10 centimeters wide and 6 centimeters deep. As seen in the video, the device was able to cross it, though, with some effort, but occasionally it also bottomed out completely. So, if you have extreme unevenness on your property, you should level it out a bit beforehand, and then there will be no issues with the Yuka. This leads to the most important question. What technology does the new Mammotion Yuka use to navigate the lawn? How well does this work in practice? And what are the advantages and disadvantages? Like the Luba, this is a wireless GPS lawnmower robot, eliminating the need for time-consuming installation of boundary wires. The robot determines its position on the lawn using satellites and receives correction data for positioning via the GNSS antenna. This allows for positioning in practice with accuracy down to a few centimeters. This also enables mowing in precise, parallel paths, which works very well. However, the key requirement is still that the device has a sufficiently good satellite reception. This means that shading from large trees or tall buildings should be avoided as much as possible. From my practical experience, though, I can say that the device has very strong reception due to its large GNSS antenna. This means that, in my test, I was able to place the antenna near large trees and still achieved sufficient satellite reception. The special feature, the Yuka also has two cameras on the front with a 120-degree field of view, as well as another camera on top with a 116-degree field of view. The robot offers us the practical feature of using the built-in cameras as surveillance cameras, allowing us to remotely monitor what's happening around the robot. The front camera is also used for obstacle detection and positioning. If the robot is under a large tree and lacks sufficient GPS reception, it can use the built-in cameras to move a certain distance until the reception improves. According to the manufacturer, the upper camera is used only for surveillance and not for navigation. The mower robot itself must also receive satellite signals, so it should not be covered or parked under a metal garage. The good news is that satellite coverage and signal strength can be read in the app and tracked in real time. When discussing area performance, it quickly becomes clear that the Yuka is more suited for medium-sized gardens. There are two model variants available, which differ only in the size of the area they can cover: the Yuka 1500 and the Yuka 2000. As the names suggest, these models are designed for maximum mowing areas of 1,500 and 2,000 square meters respectively. Compared to other devices from other manufacturers, as shown in the graphic, the Yuka ranks in the upper mid-range and is suitable for medium to medium-large gardens. It's important to note that the maximum area that can be set in the app is also limited. So, for the Yuka 1500, you can set a maximum of 1,800 square meters, and for the Yuka 2000, a maximum of 2,400 square meters. The relatively large area coverage of the robot doesn't come out of nowhere, but is largely due to its cutting width as well as its working principle. Looking at the underside, it becomes clear that Mammotion has also equipped the Yuka with two blade discs, each with 3 blades, which is a great feature because, as shown in the graphic, this places the device ahead of the competition and ensures an efficient cut, but more on that later. Additionally, the 2 blade discs result in a significantly larger cutting width of a solid 320 millimeters. As shown in the comparison graphic, this is slightly less than that of the Luba, but still considerably more than any other lawnmower robot I've tested. In practice, this translates not only to wider mowing paths, but also to greatly increased efficiency. While other mowers take 2 passes to mow an area, the Yuka does it in one go. This saves a lot of time, allowing us to cover larger areas in a shorter period. Another major advantage of the new Yuka lies in its built-in battery. As sustainability and cost efficiency become increasingly important, Mammotion has decided to make the battery accessible from the outside. Located underneath a black cover on the underside of the mower, the lithium-ion battery can be swapped out without much effort. This is a significant benefit. The battery itself has a nominal voltage of 21.6 volts, 4.5 ampere hours, and a compact 97.2 watt-hours. When looking at the capacity in comparison, it quickly becomes clear that the Yuka doesn't stand out, but rather falls into the solid mid-range. This is also reflected in the runtime, as the mower managed to mow for about 1.5 hours in my test before heading back to the charging station with 15% battery remaining to protect the battery. Under optimal conditions, it can mow up to 350 square meters per hour. In my case, it was about 250 square meters, as I slightly reduced the distance between mowing lines. It's important to note that the battery life can vary greatly depending on the terrain. Factors such as the length of the mowing lines, slope, obstacles, and even the grass itself can extend or shorten the run time. Recharging takes about 2 hours, after which the mower resumes work exactly where it left off. When it comes to cutting height in a lawnmower, most devices aim for the middle range. The Yuka, however, takes a completely different approach and operates on another level entirely. Firstly, it's worth mentioning that the cutting height on the device can only be adjusted manually and cannot be controlled via the app, like with the Luba. In my opinion, for most garden owners, this shouldn't be a problem, as most will set a uniform cutting height for all zones and adjust it only once during the initial setup. To adjust the cutting height, there's a large adjustment wheel located in the middle of the robot's top side. This wheel can be unlocked and adjusted with moderate pressure. The individual height settings are well marked and easy to read, which is very convenient. Additionally, the cutting height adjustment feels very sturdy, so you don't get the impression that something might break easily. Regarding the height levels, I was genuinely surprised by the Yuka. The range of cutting heights is simply enormous. It can be adjusted in 10mm increments, from a minimum of 20mm for a very low cut to an impressive 90mm for very tall grass. Looking at the data in comparison, it becomes clear that the Yuka surpasses everything else and is therefore the ultimate all-rounder when it comes to cutting height. Not to forget is the movable suspension of the mowing deck with metal brackets on the underside, which ensures that the grass roots are not accidentally scalped and damaged on uneven terrain, which is very advantageous. Another important feature of a robotic mower is edge trimming, which I've also thoroughly tested for you in practice. To ensure that the edges are trimmed as cleanly as possible without damaging the robot, prior mapping becomes even more critical. In practice, I found that the distance between the Yuka and protruding or sloping edges should be at least 10 centimeters. This ensures that the robot doesn't scrape along the boundary or fall off the edge. Additionally, with the cutter discs being positioned centrally, this 10cm clearance means you would need at least a 20cm wide mowing edge to fully trim the border. If the lawn can be generously driven over, for example, if there's a path next to it, I would recommend setting the mower about 15 to 20 centimeters onto the boundary during mapping. The edge trimming is automatically performed by the robot after every complete mowing session. Additionally, you can manually initiate the edge trimming via the selection point in the app and also set the number of edge trimming rounds. Another feature that definitely should not be missing in any new robotic mower is the management of multiple mowing zones. Just like with the Luba, the maximum number of allowed zones depends on the specific model variant. Specifically, the Yuka 1500 allows for up to 10 zones, while the larger 2,000 square meter model allows for up to 20 separate zones. Creating, managing, and deleting individual zones is also very simple and intuitive, requiring no significant learning curve. The handling of no-go zones is identical, with both models being limited to a maximum of 50 zones. This allows you to quickly and easily create and delete restricted zones to bypass temporary objects on the lawn, such as garden furniture. Another advantage is that the charging station can be placed either inside or outside a mowing zone, providing great flexibility. The only thing to keep in mind is that the pass-through width, according to my experience, should not be less than 60 centimeters to avoid damaging the device. In this case, it's better to measure again or reroute around narrow spots, as the connecting paths can be of unlimited length and do not need to run directly. So, if you plan to set up a lot of zones in your garden, you should choose the 2,000 square meter version when it comes to multi-zone management, as it allows for a few more zones. Let's move on to the next topic, which is obstacle detection. Initially, I expected the exact same results as with the already tested Luba, but the Yuka quickly proved me wrong, showing that a closer look is definitely worthwhile here. First and foremost, when it comes to obstacle detection, it can be said that the Yuka also has several redundant systems to avoid obstacles. These include the built-in dual camera and the bumper. In the app, depending on the requirements, we can choose between 4 different obstacle avoidance levels. The 2 most important levels are drive-on contact and contactless avoidance. In the first case, the lowest detection level called drive-on contact, only the bumper is used, which is essential when mowing particularly tall grass. Only when a hard object stands in the way of the robot and hits the bumper is it mechanically triggered and the mower stops. If you look closely at the bumper, you'll immediately notice that it's not a separate component but integrated into the chassis. The advantage here is obvious. Because of the large chassis, the bumper has a huge contact area, allowing not only frontal but also side obstacles to be easily detected. This works flawlessly in practice, and there's nothing to criticize here. However, it is worth noting that it sometimes requires quite a bit of pressure before the bumper triggers, as you can see in the video. With large, heavy obstacles, this is no problem at all. However, with smaller obstacles, they may sometimes be pushed aside. It's also important to note that direct contact with obstacles can cause some scratches or damage to the housing. To minimize this, Mammotion has equipped the Yuka with 2 nice, thick rubber edges to protect the delicate housing from scratches. In my opinion, this is a very good approach, although the rubber guards could be significantly larger in my view. For those who do not have extremely tall grass to mow, contactless obstacles avoidance is definitely recommended. For this, the Yuka uses the same dual camera on the front that is also used for navigation. This camera has a fairly wide 120-degree field of view to reliably detect obstacles. During the test, I thoroughly evaluated the Yuka with a variety of obstacles to examine its detection capabilities. The result, large obstacles, such as people, garden furniture, a watering can, or a soccer ball, were always reliably detected and avoided, so there's no need to worry in that regard. But what surprised me positively was that the Yuka can also detect significantly smaller obstacles quite well. For example, a vase or flower pot, as well as very small children's or dog toys, were also reliably detected and avoided by the robot. However, caution should be taken with very flat obstacles, which might even have a similar color to the lawn. As shown in the video, the garden trowel was not reliably detected in this case. And now, the most important thing, the hedgehog or small animal test. How well does it detect these? I tested the Yuka with a very realistic hedgehog model, and after several attempts, I can say with confidence that the detection is precise enough to recognize and avoid them, at least in daylight. However, alongside all the advantages, there are, of course, some limitations. For instance, precise obstacle detection via camera is only possible in daylight. That means during twilight or at night, contactless detection no longer takes place. In my tests, I also noticed that the robot sometimes detects shadows as obstacles, and performs avoidance maneuvers around these imaginary obstructions. Overall, the obstacle detection is very good, but there is still room for improvement. Before we get to the conclusion, a few final words about Yuka's big extra feature, the sweeping function. The special thing about this mower is that we have the option to convert the robot into a grass and leaf collector with an optional sweeping unit. The sweeping unit is simply attached to the back of the device, connected to the robot, and enables the automatic collection of grass clippings, leaves, and small branches using an integrated rubber brush. It's basically the same as the manual leaf vacuum from Gardena that I've tested before. By the way, if you haven't seen that video yet, you can find it now on my channel or in the info card on the top right. However, since the sweeping unit for the Yuka is, first of all, optional, and second, almost as extensive as the mower itself, I will present and test it in detail in a separate video. For anyone who has a few deciduous trees nearby and struggles with a lot of leaves every fall, this practical additional module could be very useful. What the sweeping unit actually has to offer and how it performs in various scenarios will be thoroughly tested in my next video. Once it's online, I'll link it in the info card on the top right. So if you haven't done so yet, quickly subscribe to my channel and activate the bell to avoid missing the upcoming video. Okay, with that said, let's move on to the final point, the conclusion. Overall, I have to admit, I was initially a bit skeptical about the new Yuka and its practical usability. But the more I tested the robot, the quicker it convinced me of its many advantages, so much so that I actually don't want to give it up anymore. From my side, there's a clear recommendation. The only question is, for whom or for which type of garden? To help with this, I've prepared the following criteria to help you determine if the Yuka is right for you and your garden. The more criteria you can confirm, the better suited it is for you. Let's go. 1. I have a small to medium-sized lawn, not significantly larger than 2,000 square meters, ideally even smaller. 2. My lawn consists of a single zone or multiple separate zones with a total of no more than 20. 3. I don't have full shading from large trees or tall buildings that disrupt the robot's signal reception. A few scattered trees are not a problem. 4. My lawn has only small to medium slopes with a maximum incline of 45%, ideally much less. 5. I want a wide cutting height range so I can mow both very short and very tall grass. 6. Efficient mowing in precise parallel paths is particularly important to me. 7. It's important to me that I can easily and independently replace the battery when it wears out. 8. Precise detection of large, medium, and small obstacles on my lawn is particularly important to me. And 9. It would be very practical if my lawn could not only be mowed automatically, but also cleaned, for which I'm willing to spend a little extra. Okay, so far so good. I hope this video helps you with your decision making. What do you think of the new Yuka from Mammotion? Do you have any open questions? Feel free to share your thoughts or maybe even your experience with the device in the comments below. I'm looking forward to your feedback. By the way, you can find the current prices of the device to support my channel down in the video description. Thank you very much for your support. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to show it with the thumbs up to help us push this video. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any future videos. So, stay healthy, take care, and see you next time. Bye!